I'm Ryan. This is my brother Daniel, and this is Rolls in the Family. And today we are talking about each of our lists, our own opinions on what the top 5 games would be to start a collection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting topic because it's kind of like, I guess it's from the perspective of someone who's maybe a little bit newer, given, if you're starting from 0 board games in your collection, and these are the first 5.
Oh, wow.
But then, what are the, if you're only going to have 5 games, what kind of gives you some nice coverage of the situations you might, be looking to play games. So this is going to be interesting. We didn't collaborate on this, so we'll see how much overlap we have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of an interesting countdown list because it's one where the entries kind of rely on each other. Like we picked 5 games that complement each other.
If you had a collection of 5 games, what would
and then kind of ranked them by how solidly they made it onto the list.
Yeah.
But interesting mental exercise. Feel free to go through the mental exercise yourself and drop in the comments below
Spend a
what
lot of
you would
time.
pick as your top 5. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, this was probably the hardest list so far that I've had to wrestle with. It's to think what would cover. You think about all the different situations you have in gaming, and okay, if you only have 5 games, what are the ones? So yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, and we will have links to all the games we mentioned down below. Help support the channel. And obviously, we think they're great games to pick up to start in your collection or add to your collection if you happen to not have them.
Right.
But let's get into it. Daniel, what game just squeaked into your 5?
Yeah, so at number 5, this one definitely I was kind of going back and forth a little bit. This one is going to kind of, thinking about filling different parts of this wonderful 5-game collection. This one is filling kind of the strategic but shorter, a little bit shorter strategic. I wanted something that could both play well at 2 players, but it can also go up to 4. And it's one that my wife and I have loved and just has been a great success, and I think would be a good one in the collection. That is going to go to Splendor. So Splendor is this was one that I really wrestled with because there's a lot of games that kind of could have landed in that similar weight as Splendor. I wrestled with even something like a Cascadia or something like that. So spoiler, Cascadia didn't make the list.
Cascadia was also an honorable mention for me.
Oh,
I have 4 honorable mentions
in
this list. Yeah. So Cascadia.
But I think just for me, Splendor has been a really accessible game to kind of learn. It's the rule set's pretty straightforward, but it I think offers a lot of fun strategy, and the fact that my wife and I have played it as many times as we have, and the replayability has been really great. I think it would just be an awesome one as kind of a staple in that collection for your whether you have anywhere from 2 to 4 people, and you're looking for something kind of in that 30 minutes to an hour. But not super there's a little bit of thinking here and kind of want to play something like that. So Splendor is the one that kind of fell into that slot for me, partially biased because it's just been such a great hit in our house,
which I guess is our whole lists are going to be kind of biased by that.
If it is my list, I suppose it's inherently biased.
I've been impressed by you've played Splendor way more than I have, and you and your wife, I would say, are very seasoned gamers.
Oh, right.
Wow. And you guys still really enjoy playing Splendor, just the 2 of you.
Yeah, we really do.
And so I think that's something we'll see multiple times on this list is games that can continue to appeal to players that have played a lot of games, but you could pull out with new people and have a really good experience as well.
Yeah, because this list is assuming you never buy a board game ever again, right, Ryan?
That wasn't quite part of it. It was to start. In fact, I would say that the fact we said start implies that it could go further. But,
okay.
The lens was definitely that these 5 could if work well, for a while.
You're assuming there's going to be an unhealthy addiction that follows after these 5 games. Is that right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Are you getting paged or something over there?
Yeah,
David?
my pager's going off. So, there we go. So yeah, no, that's my number 5. Splendor.
There you go. Okay, my number 5, and this was hard because from the perspective of starting a collection, there's this question of like, how heavy of a game do you want in this collection? Because it felt like you probably want something that can like bump up a little bit into more strategy games, especially because somebody is starting their collection doesn't mean they don't really, like a little bit more strategy in their games. But like, you don't want to go overboard, and you'd still want it to kind of bridge the gap of being maybe more accessible. And so this is the one I definitely went back and forth on the most as far as what to include here. But I landed on a game that, we just always feel the need to mention, and that is Agricola.
Oh, wow.
And that, probably
Ryan,
comes across as super biased because we definitely are fanboys of Agricola. I thought about...
We need to just have a disclosure at the bottom every time we talk about Agricola. We are not sponsored by...
No, we need to have something that's like, even if we don't mention Agricola on this list... We recommend you go check out Agricola. Just a disclaimer.
Just a disclaimer.
No, because I was thinking through, all these kind of like strategy games and thought, what are ones that kind of hit on, so I was thinking about Agricola, and there's the element of, I think the theme is kind of, yes, it's kind of dry, but everybody getting to kind of build up their own farm.
Yeah, it's
kind
terrible.
Of like an accessible thing. And I honestly can see Agricola working well with a group that's all on the same level. Because the game's not overly complicated. The cards definitely add in some, extra spice. It's really doing very, very well in the game that gets a little bit more heavy strategic. But I could see you having a group that, like, if you all start out together, maybe you're all scoring in the 20s. But who cares?
You'd be having a great
You'd
time.
You'd be having a good time, right? It's not like you have some power user in the group that's shaming you. I don't think that's how our experience with
Agricola started. That was me in the 20s, and Ryan immediately started in the 40s.
I ramped up a little quicker. And so I could see where it has a nice player count of 2 to 5 players, plays great at all of those. You're getting a really nice spread of player counts that it works well at. And then if you're going to only have, one heavier game in your collection, which potentially means you're playing it more often, Agricola, I mean, you're not going to get much better than Agricola in terms of rewarding repeated plays of the same game. So I included it. It basically, for me, filled that like more strategic game niche in my 5.
Yeah, so Agricola did not make my list, although I will say after your argument there that you might be quickly adjusting my list as we go here. No, that's a great choice. Yeah, and honestly, is that the lowest Agricola has ever ranked in a list? My gosh, 5, trash, man, trash. Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, so we're moving on now to my number 4. This is really wanted something. So we've got kind of Splendor is a little bit more, starting to thinky medium kind of weight. I wanted something, what's that quick, accessible, like, hey, we've got, kind of that, you're probably around 20 to 30 minutes. We just want to play something together. And the one that I landed on that I think has been a real hit for both of us is going to go to Fantasy Realms. So I find Fantasy Realms has worked really well for almost everyone. It's not everyone's going to love Fantasy Realms per se, but a lot of people really do, and I think it brings a wide range of people together because on the one hand, someone who's maybe hasn't played a lot of board games, it's pretty simple in terms of like the rule set. It's literally just draw a card, discard a card. But then gamers, people who want to play an Agricola or something like that, who enjoy strategy, there is a lot there in terms of, the comboing of stuff. It's a very satisfying thing, and it plays very quickly. And so, when kind of thinking through, okay, what is that game that I'm going to bring out Whether it's at the end of a night of gaming, we just want a little bit of time together for to just play something quick and yet satisfying. Ultimately landed on Fantasy Realms. There were a few others that kind of I considered for that space and whatnot, but I think ultimately I've just had such a consistent positive experience with Fantasy Realms. Interestingly, it actually can even play well at 2 players. So my wife and I have even done that a few times, and it works well.
Yes, yeah, so, I don't know if I've ever played it 2 players.
Yeah, actually. I mean, it's obviously very different in terms of the pacing of the game, in terms of obviously the game is driven by how often you're discarding or whatnot. So you actually have a lot more. It's kind of actually similar to Splendor in the sense of, in both Splendor and Fantasy Realms, when there's more people, there's a little bit of kind of so much happens between your turn that a lot can change. The game can suddenly end. Whereas in a 2-player game, there's a lot less of that luck happening from other people, so you feel a lot more kind of in control of
it's
what's
also
happening.
A lot easier to like really pay attention to what the other person is taking and be like, they're kind of going after this. Whereas if you're playing with a group of like 5, you might pay attention if like somebody takes one of those ones. It's like the Sword of Keth, that it's like if they get the other card,
I will not. Yeah,
the Shield of Keth, if they took it, they probably already
have it. Yeah, they're not just gambling. So this one was tricky because I know people who like your wife, for example, who don't want to like read a lot of text.
Yeah,
that and that's where I was wrestling, but just had a lot of really good experiences with it. So that's where it kind of fell into my quick game that would be in my collection. So number 4 is Fantasy Realms.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think if there's like one weakness in my list, it's maybe more in like the filler category.
No fillers.
I wouldn't say.
Agricola's,
I mean, there's some of them
Ryan's
that can.
filler.
Yeah, Agricola is the shortest game on this list. But yeah, it's definitely and that's why this is so hard making this, is because you think of something like that, like, oh, I guess I'm kind of like could do better in this way, but which of these 5 am I gonna take off?
This is why we keep buying more board games.
Yeah, exactly.
This is why we have more than 5.
The moral of the story is 5 is not enough.
We should have done a video of 50 instead. That would have been way more comprehensive.
The best 100 games to start your collection. Yes, how to start your board gaming collection with only $5,000 on Rolls with the Fam.
That'd be great.
My number 4. I wanted a cooperative game. And this was a difficult one to think of, like, because there's like some heavier cooperative games, but I was thinking like you probably want kind of a more accessible, easy to get to the table cooperative game. And I ended up landing, I guess I put specifically Marvel United X-Men. Now, it really could be Marvel United X-Men or Marvel United. I think the only reason I went X-Men is that base set comes with a little bit more content because it has some of the heroes, villains that can go both ways. You kind of have more to use. That said, if you like really liked the more Avengers characters more, like I could see that, making more sense. But Marvel United, and it is a game that, part of what I've liked so much about it is that I have so much content for it and expansion content for it. But I think even with a base box like that, there's a lot of mileage you can get out of it. And it's an easy cooperative game. I mean, you could play this with looping some kids into the game, but you can also play it with a gamer group or, people that don't play a lot of games. I mean, it's pretty like widespread as far as who can enjoy this game. It's quick. Like the games are usually 20 to 30 minutes. And you get kind of that feel of a game like Pandemic or Horrified, where we're working as a team to kind of, do this thing. And I did consider some of those games. But I think for me, Marvel United, honestly, the theme helps a lot because a lot of people know Marvel and like it. I like the mix and match nature of, every time you play, you're kind of mix and matching it in a different way with different heroes, different villain, different locations, and you just kind of get like a new experience each time. That was another thing I struggled on this list is like, do we assume that expansions exist like in this world? Because like, you know, if they do, then that's kind of an advantage of this pick.
Yeah.
Is like, if you like it, there's definitely some nice content that you can get to even flesh it out more.
Opportunities to spend money.
Yes. And so, yeah, I think it kind of covered. I mean, you can even play this game solo. I know a lot of people do. So I don't know if that's a scenario you were thinking about in your 5. Seeing as you don't do any solo gaming, but it doesn't hurt to have your 5 be able to do that. So that's the one I landed on for kind of a cooperative strategy game.
No, and actually, you've now just a little kind of exposed a flaw in my list of. I realized it didn't really meet that a solid, bigger cooperative experience, and honestly, ones that I know were honorable mentions for me were both Last Bastion. I considered that actually, and this one felt weird to consider. But honestly, I think it's a great option. Was actually Mechs versus Minions.
It's not a good one to start a collection in 2024.
I know, and that was
if you can get it.
That was why I left it off. Is it's like you can't really get it. But if you could, I mean, honestly, in terms of like just great cooperative game, table presence, all that sort of stuff. That was one that I did consider. But very nice, yeah. So Ryan's got his cooperative one on lockdown. Okay.
Kind of heavier strategy.
Yeah, nice. Okay, coming to my number 3 now. This is going to get now into, I always picture kind of tiers of complexity. So we're now moving above Splendor in that this game, typically probably takes about hour and a half. Probably about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And is one that's still one of our most widespread appeal type of games, in that it just has worked with so many people. It is one that we constantly refer to as a just continual dopamine hit throughout the game, and this is going to go to the Quacks of Quedlinburg. So
you threw me off with your times there. I always think of Quacks is more like an hour game, but maybe. You guys are slow over there.
It probably only takes. Yeah, it probably takes. It's still a step
it can be
up.
A little longer.
It's still. Yeah, it probably depends. And whatnot. Yeah, if it's a newer group, but it's definitely a step up from Splendor in that there's just a little bit more going on. It also is. I wanted this one in the collection because it kind of hits a little bit of kind of that push your luck side of things. Feels very different than just a typical strategy game. Almost even a little bit, has that kind of party feel. Without being fully a party game, it kind of has that experience. You can play with a wide number of players. In fact, you've played in teams before, and that's even worked decently well. So I took that into consideration. And so a game that has a ton of replayability with all the ingredients and all that sort of stuff, and is just so satisfying to continually draw those chips out of the back. Now, I'm assuming you have the chip upgrade set. That was the caveat.
I mean, you can get by with that.
No, Ryan. You cannot. You can, but you can't. So
for a time, for
a week. But yeah, it's one that just I find it's one that I'm continually with people pulling out, as kind of that, one of the first kind of starting to get into bigger games and whatnot, and just worked so well throughout the times that I've played it with people. So that is why it's going to be coming in at my number 3, the Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Very, very nice. My number 3 gets into something we haven't really talked about on either of our lists, which is kind of like party game territory. Because you want something that kind of is hitting on bigger groups, really accessible. And I, considered some different things, but in the end, it felt like it had to be just one. Just one, which basically can go up to 8 players, despite the lies on the box.
Why are they?
Which is a pretty good count as far as like, yes, you could have party situations that are more than that, but 8 covers a lot of situations. And just like, it's a party game that there's no situation where you're going to go, oh, just one is going to be too much for, the people I have here. Like, because there are other party games I considered that it's like, if that's your only party game, there could be situations where you want a party game and that wouldn't be a great fit. Whereas Just One, I've seen it work great with people who do like games and like, have played a lot of games and are okay with the complexity. But then I've seen it work well with people that like would probably hate 95% of the other games we might throw at them and still really enjoy Just One. So I think that just makes it a very solid party game pick if you're only going to have one. I tried as I go through the rest of my list, I did try to hit on some other possibilities at higher player counts. But this is kind of the one pure party game. Like I consider something like So Clover, because we've talked about like we personally enjoy So Clover even more than Just One. But the cap at 6 players, I mean, you can kind of get around it if you just like have people play without filling out a Clover. Buy a second set. Yeah. That was an unknown thing. It's the 5 games that start your collection, but you can buy as many copies of any of them as possible. Does that change
I was assuming that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to add Keyforge so you can have 200 Keyforge decks. Yeah. So it was hard to do anything that was going to cap it like 6. I was like, it needs to at least get to 8. And so Just One just makes it in. Actually, it was pretty solid. That comes in at my number 3.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. Very nice.
Okay.
We haven't had any overlaps yet, have we?
Not yet, but I anticipate some.
I'll say I don't anticipate.
You don't anticipate some?
I, in fact, might be shocked if we overlap based off how this has gone. I'll just say that because we're to my number 2 now.
Interesting.
So
it's gonna have some wild cards here.
Well, you mentioned that so now we're getting to thinking about tiers. This is my top heavy. Like I needed something for like if someone's clearly interested in gaming and what is that top heavy board game experience, and very much wrestled with this because we have a lot of really good options. Considered Agricola. As personally, I like Agricola the most out of the options that I was considering. I think the Agricola, it was my hesitancy was just around, you got to be okay. You got to like the really intense experience, right? Like your actions. I mean, some people do not like that pressure.
It's true.
And so that was probably the reason why I landed on this game, is I felt like it was a little safer of them liking it. So this is going to go to Terraforming Mars. This one is also a fantastic, heavy experience, but I think the thing that I loved about it was it's a little more your I mean, there's obviously the shared board and whatnot, but you've just got like your personal cards and the engine, and it's a little less aggressive in terms of like the actions and whatnot. Although you can send asteroids, and that can potentially not go well. But I find Terraforming Mars is one that for people who are thinking about wanting to try something heavier, this one works so well, and I think it's just the mechanisms people I feel like grasp onto kind of immediately, and I mean the whole just cards, if I play, the engine building is just beautiful, and the way just I play this card, now I go up in this and all that sort of stuff. And I think there's a lot of replayability in it. You can obviously when you have that many cards, it just kind of inherently has a lot of that. But that was honestly kind of the reason I landed on that one. Honestly, you could go with both, or well, not. I mean, you could go with both, but either. because both Agricola and Terraforming Mars are fantastic games. But kind of just felt as like, okay, would there be people who would want a heavier game, but maybe don't necessarily love the tension of Agricola?
Yeah.
And that's where I thought Terraforming Mars might be a little more welcoming in the heavier game sphere. Sphere. That's not how I pronounce that usually.
Yes.
So there you go. That is my number 2. Absolutely fantastic game.
It.
Yeah,
I considered it heavily. Yeah, like this, like I said, Agricola, and that's why Agricola landed at my number 5. Is it was the closest to being switched out, and Terraforming Mars is one of the ones that because I like agree with everything you're saying, but then at like the same time I was like, well,
yeah,
Agricola has this weird thing of like it's as tense as like your expectations are.
Yeah.
Like for us, it continues to be so tense because we are shooting for this target that's like ambitious based on our
set a
experience.
Low target, and that's not tense.
So it is just. I think sometimes we can forget that like a new group with it maybe doesn't have.
Yeah.
Like the expectation.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. We know how precise we have to be to get to 50 points or whatnot. And if you get, so getting blocked is just devastating. Whereas, someone new to the game, it's like, oh, okay, I got blocked. Okay, well, I'll go over and get this. And
and I could see a game where, you manage feeding your people and you end up and you only got to like 20 points. You didn't do everything, but you feel good about, what you did and you had fun with the mechanisms. And as long as there's not somebody in the group that's sitting over there with 45, 50 points, like you probably like.
Right. Yeah,
But it is hard to say because even then, I mean, it is still this like kind of punishing. You need to figure out how to feed your people. There's the way, just the psychology of the scoring, like you get negatives for things.
Yeah.
It isn't just like, you score nothing.
Right.
I know there's people that have like come up with alternative Agricola scorecards that it's equivalent, but it makes everything positive.
Well, that's what I did with, what game did I do that for? Where I have no idea why they,
they did talking about
they did
this.
it. They made everything like a scoring for a thing like a negative one, but it totally could have just been the opposite of it, make it a positive. And
and that's what people have talked about with Agricola. Is like, instead of losing a point for every unused space, you get a point for every used space.
Yeah, and it's like you're scoring the same thing, but people.
Then you'll be scoring 50 in your first game.
No, if you told me that a person is going to enjoy the game, like this heavy game, I would then put Agricola on the list because I think the ceiling of enjoyment, I would say, is actually
we're talking about
higher.
Two of my all-time favorite games. Agricola and like you can't go too wrong.
I think there's even more depth to Agricola that can be explored if you love it. So very nice. Yeah, that's my number 2.
Cool. My number 2 is what I knew was going to be a crossover because you've already said it. So that's where I was coming pretty confidently that we were going to have a crossover.
Oh, okay. I see.
Maybe this will be the only. Maybe this will be the only crossover.
Wink, wink. No, we're gonna have a crossover.
Yeah, you want to put money on that bet?
Yeah, you should have. You should have hustled me, man.
Yeah. So this is one. I thought of pretty early on as being hitting on. I mean, it just almost everybody loves this game. It feels so different. You mentioned how it touches on the push your luck. This is the Quacks of Quedlinburg. And it's some of the main criteria I was thinking on this list is like a breadth of player count, which Quacks is all right on. It's like 2 to 4. I guess I always think of it 2 to 5 because I have the expansion. I guess it's 2 to 4 with the base game. But then also breadth of types of gamers that would enjoy it. And Quacks is one that, man, is that broad. Like I have played it with my heaviest strategic gaming group and had a great time playing Quacks. And I've played it with people who have like never played a modern board game and had a great time. And so that just ends up being so good for this list. But then on top of that, it really hits on some things that aren't covered by my other 4 games. The push your luck is a big one, that kind of excitement. The other huge one is the bag building. Because like, spoiler, I don't have a deck builder on my list. And it felt like you needed like deck building or bag building to be represented. Like that's such a like core modern mechanism. And it's a very satisfying one because like, especially in Quacks, it's really the aspect that makes it appeal to like more people who enjoy heavier games, is because you get this puzzle of how do I combo things and adjust my probabilities. But then people who don't really, want to think too hard, they just like pick whichever one they think sounds good and then draw it out. So I think that bag building is a really, really good mechanism. And yeah, I mean, we've sung Quacks's praises. Quackses. I don't know if I've ever said that before.
Quacks.
The praises of Quacks, we've had it go over so well, so many times. I've played it a lot. I've played it a few times recently, and I continue. I mean, I've played it over 40 some times. Still love it. I just I have not gotten tired of it. The ability to switch out those the menu, the ingredients and what abilities they do, which also allows me as like kind of the game master to tune it to the group. Like if I'm playing with a group that I know is going to not want to think really hard, I give some of the like easy to understand fun abilities that like just work well. And if I've got my more gaming group, I pull out these like more complicated ones that it's not exactly clear, and we kind of like wrestling with figuring that out. So we're in agreement here. Quacks is a great one to be in the start of a collection.
Yeah, honestly, one that I didn't really consider because I don't currently own it. It was one of our first games that we ever owned. But that could have been a great option is Dominion. Like I enjoy I think Quacks is more widespread appeal, but man, you talk about like an initial game in a collection with, again, if you're going off the assumption of expansions exist, my gosh, there is a
Dominion is a great pick for this list as well.
Whole world of content for that. So, that one definitely is a good honorable mention there. Okay, Ryan, coming to my number 1. This one, I needed a game that kind of hit more in the party sphere. I keep saying,
I was waiting for it. I was like, he hasn't mentioned it.
Yeah, so I needed some. So you went with Just One. That is not my pick. And the one I'm going with, and I will say again, the other weakness to my collection, and you argued for this with Just One, is that it goes up to 8. And that is a weakness to my collection right now, is unless you go with Quacks saying you could play with, but we're going to go with the normal limitations of the games. Currently my collection, these 5 would cap at 6, which is definitely a weakness. But it was a weakness I was okay being with because I think this game is so worth having, and that is going to go to So Clover. The reason I went with So Clover over Just One, I actually like So Clover significantly more. Also, I find So Clover produces a laughing experience that Just One can, but I find I get it more in So Clover. I find it is very funny as we're, trying to guess what someone's clover says or what their clover, how the things are arranged and whatnot. Also, the whole just puzzle of a clue for the 2 words. I find that way more for myself satisfying than the like Just One's fun. But there's not there's not a ton of like thinking hard about the
it's
thing.
Very, very light.
It's very, so it's almost a tier below in being light and whatnot. So Clover, but man, it's just worked so well across a wide range of people for us. It again produces that laughing experience. It's while also not just it's not just like a like a Telestrations, which I actually did consider, where it's like the sole purpose is laughing, but there's a real awesome game of challenge and satisfaction when you get someone's clover right and are just I mean, the puzzle of trying to figure, how would they do it? It is so satisfying, and so combines the kind of humor and laughter that I love in party games with a really satisfying kind of group puzzle. It's cooperative, so I think that makes it, even more accessible than some other maybe party games where there's competition happening. So yeah, that one is why it came in at my number one, because it has just been a slam dunk for me and the people that I've played with, and it of party games just marries a perfect blend of laughter and strategy and word. I love the it didn't really have anything around like kind of
word association,
yeah. And it's funny, I'm not sure that's necessarily something I always love in games, but man, the whole just 2 words and find a way to put them together, I love that. So that's why it is coming in at my number one. So close.
Very nice. It sounds like we went through some similar reasoning, because those are really the 2 I was looking at, with So Clover and Just One. And yeah, like I erred on the side of even more accessible and player count, but like it was pretty close for me. It was pretty close for me.
Well, I assumed I had a second copy of So Clover, so technically my player count's higher.
Well, that's an untested theory on how well that experience works.
Yeah, and could you do that with Just One as well?
Yeah, technically. I don't know how much it starts changing the dynamic of the game. It probably gets easier. Like, you'd have more canceling, but you would also just have a higher chance that you're going to have a lot of clues that make it through each time.
Right.
But it'd be interesting. Play it with like 100 people. So my number one, I mentioned that some of the big criteria I was looking at was plays well across a lot of player counts and appeals to a broad range of kind of like preferred what people prefer in terms of complexity. And this one really, I think, just nails that. This plays really, really well at 2. You can even play it solo, but it plays really, really well at 2. I have played it and had a great experience with 12 people. This is Cartographers. And that range of being able to play well and all of that, it is enough by itself to really make it a strong contender on this list. But then I find it also strikes that balance between, it's a little bit more complex. Like, there's definitely people I wouldn't introduce this to. But there's this is a game I feel comfortable introducing to people that maybe haven't played games, because it's kind of a spatial Tetris-y, fit in the shapes, draw in on your sheet. But then I've also had this work really well with people who enjoy heavier games. And I mean, that's the perspective I'm coming from. I've enjoyed playing this. I mean, it's kind of turned into my favorite in the roll and write, flip and write genre, which honestly is a good genre, I think, for a list like this, because they're games that tend to play across a lot of player counts pretty well. But yeah, Cartographers, I think that range that you're able to have those good experiences. I mean, so Just One caps at 8. Now Cartographers gives me the ability, I could even go beyond 8, as long as it's a group that doesn't have anybody in it that really, really isn't going to like any kind of, more complex games.
Right.
So yeah, this one was like kind of anchored my list, because it feels like one that, I mean, if we were to even like make the restrictions harder, right? And like, you can only have 3 games, or you can only, like, this is one that game. I think continues to be
Ryan
there.
Choose Agricola or Cartographers?
Well, it's not if it was me, but but I guess even if it was me, I would want to have a game that I can pull out that covers situations. And Cartographers, I think, covers like more situations than any other game I've talked about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had a very good time with Cartographers. I think it's a good one to consider. Like, if you have a lean collection, Cartographers is like big bang for your buck in what it covers for you.
Good value for sure. It was one that I briefly considered. One, I think I slightly blanked on how high the player count goes. I forgot it was
technically
12.
To 100. Because there's no cap. It's as long as you have enough sheets. Wow. I think I've actually played. It's possible I've played more than 12. I mean, it's not like those situations come up that often that you have that many people and none of them you know.
I know. Are you keeping a game for a situation that's never going to happen?
But I've pid it with a big group of 12 or whatever.
I honestly I haven't played Cartographers that much. I think I've only played it a few times maybe.
Yeah.
So I still probably need a little bit more just to. I think I've enjoyed it just a few more times to really kind of land on my opinion of it. But yeah, in terms of versatility, I mean that's about as good as you get. How long does that one take to play?
Probably about 45 minutes to an hour. It depends a little. It definitely gets long. It's all simultaneous play, but it's one of those games where simultaneous play is going to be dictated by the slowest player each round. So if you got 12 people, chances are there's somebody each round that's like really thinking about it, and it kind of slows it down. Whereas, I mean, this game can fly with two, like if you both are like experienced with the game. I think it also does a great job of kind of variety game to game, because you always mix up those objectives, the scoring objectives for the 4 seasons.
So
yeah, I've had very good success with it. I have like the collector's editions. I have all this extra content of like different maps you can use and stuff, but you definitely would not need all that to still get like a lot of mileage out of it.
Well, very nice. So there you go, guys. Those are our top 5 board games to start a collection. Like we mentioned, let us know down below. What are your 5 games that you think would start a collection? And hey, while you're at it, let us know whose collection was better, Ryan's or Daniel's.
Team Ryan.
Yeah. Let us know which one do you think is a better start to a collection. But either way, we think these are 5 games worth checking out.
Hey, thanks for watching. Like we said, we got links below to all these games. Maybe you're starting a new collection. Then you watched the right video. Maybe consider these games below as ones to try out first. And otherwise, we will see you in the next video.